Good morning. My name is Armen Tashjian, and I'll be trying to moderate this wonderful discussion here with our panelists, starting from my right, Mariam Kuregyan, Odjaghian, and Gerard Kassabian. These three individuals are very successful in their fields. They are in leadership positions. They are on the board of Armenian Bar Association, and they have conquered the world in their own. So let's have one round of good applause for them for their dedication to leadership. My name is Armen Tashjian. I'm a sole practitioner in Glendale here. I've been practicing for about 25 years in civil litigation primarily. But our panel members concentrate on different areas of law, and today we want to ask them some questions to give some guidance to those that aspire to embark in the wonderful career of practicing law. And not only practicing law, but going out on their own, winning big, and also serving the community, which they have done. So starting with the young lady on my right, Mariam Kuregyan.
I'm not that young.
You look very young. Mariam started Davana Law Firm in 2017 and practices in the areas of personal injury, catastrophic injury, property damage, wrongful death, asset protection, planning and consulting, and civil litigation. Prior to launching Davana Law Firm, Ms. Kuregyan practiced law within a multi-billion-dollar global firm and production company owned by media entertainment conglomerate Viacom as in-house counsel. Within her distribution team at Paramount Pictures, Ms. Kuregyan was instrumental in drafting and negotiating licensing agreements worldwide across all media platforms. Ms. Kuregyan is fluent in English, Russian, and Armenian, which increases her ability to communicate more effectively and appreciate cultural diversity. While in law school, Ms. Kuregyan volunteered at YWCA Domestic Violence Legal Division in Glendale, California, where she helped women affected by domestic violence. Ms. Kuregyan takes personal pride in giving back to her community, and she's actively involved in several community organizations. She received her Bachelor's of Science degree in International Business and Finance with honors from Woodbury University in 1999, and her Juris Doctorate from Whittier Law School in 2006. Ms. Kuregyan is a member of State Bar California, Armenian Bar, Wealth Council, CALA, which is Consumer Attorney Association of Los Angeles, and the National Trial Lawyers Team. How about Ms. Kuregyan? Ms. Tina Odjaghian is a prominent Southern California lawyer who specializes in catastrophic injury litigation. Her team of lawyers have secured some of the highest settlements and awards on behalf of catastrophically injured workers in the state. Her main concentration of practice is workers' compensation law, and that's where she specializes with a subspecialty in traumatic brain injuries, if I am not mistaken on that. So Ms. Odjaghian also is a fashion guru and has a really big interest in fashion and design industry. That comes to her from her grandmother, who was, I believe, the only female student in the class of almost 100 males. And she graduated from dental school. She was a dentist. Ms. Odjaghian is influenced by her grandmother, who was very wonderful influence in her life, as well as her mother. She runs a successful business, and she enjoys travel and enjoys every aspect of a fashion and design industry. How about applause for Ms. Odjaghian? Gerard Kassabian, who's a JD and LLM, practices in the area of estate planning and estate management. Gerard I believe, is licensed, since 2002 and admitted to practice in California State Court and Federal District Court. Gerard established law offices of Gerard V. Kassabian, APC, in November of 2010 and is currently located in Sherman Oaks, California. After graduating from University of Southern California with dual degrees in business finance with emphasis in real estate and political science, Gerard attended Southwestern Law School, where he was an associate editor of the Southwestern Law Review Honors Program. Gerard also graduated with a Master's of LLM in estate planning from the University of Miami School of Law in 2002, which is the premier graduate law school program in the country, offering a master's degree in estate and tax planning, and is closely associated with Heckering Institute on Estate Planning. Gerard has experience representing families for both transactional and litigation matters with respect to their trusts and estates, post-death administration, family law and divorce, real estate, and business law matters. How about a round of applause for Mr. Kassabian? So the first question to panel members is, why and how did you decide that it is time for you to sort of hang your shingle? What made each of you make that decision? Let's start from Mariam.
Okay. Can everybody hear me? Hi, good morning. It's so nice to come to a full house like this. Thank you so much. Coming on a Saturday morning is no easy feat, so thank you. I appreciate each one of you. I was a paramount for 17 years, and it was time. I knew it was time because I had 3 little kids, and I think the corporate marriage was just not healthy for my actual marriage, so it was time. As a female and a mother, I think it was overwhelming to be working 24/7. So I thought it's time, so I had to step back. But deep down, when I went to law school, it's the American dream to really have your own practice. So I always knew that that's what I wanted to do, but I was always kind of leaning towards corporate because corporate offered the stability that I was always looking for. So in 2016, I came to an Armenian Bar Association meeting. I met wonderful attorneys who looked like me and spoke like me and were doing their own thing, and I think Tina was one of them. And in that moment, in that meeting, I went home and thought to myself, I can also do it. Therefore, I went back and kind of made that decision.
Thank you. Thank you. Tina?
Hi everyone. Thank you for having us. The Armenian Bar Association is near and dear to my heart. It's the first organization that welcomed me with open arms back when I was a law student and didn't have any lawyers in the family and didn't have anyone to go to for networking opportunities. So it's a really full circle for me to be back here today. Even though I'm not on the board, it's definitely near and dear to my heart. It's a pleasure to be here. So my bio was missing my educational stuff.
Sorry, I apologize.
Family is a big part of my life. No, that's fine. But so I attended Loyola, and when I graduated, on-campus interviews were only reserved for the top 20% of the class. So I had to kind of pound pavement, make calls off a list from a staffing agency, and finally, firm number 202 gave me my first summer associateship, and it happened to be in insurance defense. Now, I graduated in 2003 when a lot of big firms like Klein and Line were going under, so I was competing with attorneys with 10 years of experience for the same positions and the same pay. It was really brutal. I ended up taking a job in workers' comp insurance defense, which was regarded as the bottom of the totem pole back then, but workers' comp was stable, people were filing claims, and so I did that for a year and a half. And I realized pretty early on I was one of the top billers out of 60 attorneys at that firm, and they still micromanage you. It's just the nature of the corporate structure, right? And so if I couldn't get in earlier than 10 a.m., there was constantly someone helicoptering, and I realized I could go to law school and have so many years of education under my belt to put myself in this kind of position. I want to live the American dream. I'm very entrepreneurial as a first-generation immigrant, and so it just seemed like the next natural progression. And I didn't have kids back then. Ignorance was bliss. I had no idea what the hell I was going into. And, you know, it was the best thing I ever did, and I never looked back. So I highly recommend.
Thank you, Tina.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here, especially those who've come from far distances. One more thing to add to my bio. In 2018, I'm eternally grateful for the Armenian Bar for setting up the annual meeting in Shushi, Artsakh, where I was, I get emotional, but I was elected chairman then. It was a beautiful memory, and we hope to go back very, very soon. Jumping off the cliff is the way I looked at it for leaving a law firm where you're getting a paycheck and then going on your own. So that was a very, very difficult decision back in the day. And like Tina was explaining, when I graduated, I was in the University of Miami program, and getting ready in the morning to go to school, I saw the section when I hit the Twin Towers. That was tough. And so after that, the entire work scenario changed. Nobody was hiring. So for 5 years, I ended up not practicing while I was working with my brother, who had just opened his own medical clinic in Beverly Hills. So I was running a plastic surgeon's office and a surgical center. At first, it was supposed to be a temporary thing. I ended up being there for a little while. Next thing you know, I'm running the whole operation, but it was a great thing because I got to run a business, I got to deal with employees, I got to deal with the financial aspects of the cash flow issues, dealing with landlords, also building out spaces, all kinds of stuff that you would need in order to have to be able to give good advice to your clients because you've been in their shoes and dealing with employment or client relations or whatever. And I also had a lot of good people who were now my clients. It was a blessing in disguise, but I wasn't happy at the time. But, you know, just barreling through. And then whoever I had interviewed with that had denied me years later, one of the firms called me out of the blue, interviewed me, and within 3 days my world changed from non-lawyer to I was a lawyer. And also all the while attending the Armenian Bar Association events, which really gave a lot of comfort to make that ultimate move. But ultimately, I didn't jump off the cliff alone. We held hands with 2 of my very good friends, and we did it together, and we shared a space in order to, you know, at least to lessen the impact. And I learned a lot from my friends. One of them was a very seasoned attorney, who was basically our mentor in terms of how we're going to do it, and then the marketing we need to do, and all that. So I don't want to go beyond that because I have a feeling that there's some here. Next question.
Yes, and I'll start with question 2. Describe some of the challenges as well as the benefits of owning your own practice. And you can pass the microphone after you're done with your answer, of course.
So it was funny that one of the first things I clearly remember about that was my mentor saying, we want to hear the phone ringing. And it was funny when she first said that and we got in the office, the phones weren't ringing. And it was dead silence in there. And so we started thinking, how are we going to make this happen? How are we going to bring in clientele? It's great that we know people, but what is our avenue? So one of the things she said is, you need to know your elevator pitch. Okay, what's an elevator pitch? You're in an elevator with someone, you have 5 seconds to tell them exactly what you do, and they might open up into some conversation about it, and they may be your client, whatever. So every time she was in the elevator, we'd listen to her, what she would say. They're like, hi, how are you? What do you do? Well, I'm a family law attorney. That was it. Immediately, she would hit it right on the head. She wouldn't say, I'm an attorney, and then ask for someone to ask for a response. So what kind of attorney are you? Directly give that to them in a 5-second elevator pitch. Okay, wow, that's interesting. The stuff that you never even think about, that you just start collecting from the people around you. And with regard to a lot of the biggest fear is the financial fear, I think. How am I going to be able to pay the rent? Should I even hire an employee right now? then you're the president and you're the janitor at the same time, so you gotta do everything. It was nerve-wracking, but believe it or not, what kept me going is all these dummies did it, so can I. You know, we've seen a lot of dummies out there, and they're doing very well, so that kept me going a lot. And one of my saving things was I got involved in a lot of nonprofit organizations. That was my niche. I didn't do marketing in terms of direct marketing. My marketing was more indirect. And so being in the nonprofits, immediately the board members were already friends and they became clients of my firm, and all of their entourage would be referrals. So that's slowly how things started picking up for me. I'll hand over the mic to Tina for a completely different world.
Thank you, Gerard.
Thank you.
So look, the biggest blessing is that you're the captain of your ship, and the biggest curse is that you're the captain of your ship and you can't sink your ship, right? So for me, I think it was kind of different. In law school, it's not like medical school. You don't specialize. You kind of have to try out different specialties, different classes, different internships to get a sense of what you like. And once you figure that out, you have to master it. I clerked for Tashjian, and the most valuable lesson I learned from him is that, you can't be the jack of all trades. You really have to specialize in our line of work. I get a little concerned when I see attorneys when they're out of school advertising 20 different areas of specialty. You cannot confidently do 20 areas of specialty, and I wouldn't recommend it for your malpractice insurance. So I would say specialize and learn your craft and hone your skills and become very, 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 very good at what you do. And when you do that, then the business just comes. I fell into a little specialty niche of brain injury litigation. I loved it. I'm a big nerd. I got into the weeds. I got some great results. And the referrals just came from there. I never had to advertise, knock on wood, and we're at the point in our practice now, 20 years in, that we really get to cherry pick the cases we want to take on and refer out 90% of what comes through the door. And I think the way that you do that is you have tunnel vision, and you can't think about all the shit that's coming at you at once, because then you'll be overwhelmed and you won't get anywhere. You just have to take one step at a time, just forge forward, one step at a time, one step at a time. Before you know it, you look back and you're top of the mountain, right? So hard work beats talent every time. Talent's not working hard. I was 8 months pregnant, driving out 130 miles to see doctors I was working with, to visit prospective clients, until 3 hours of the night, drafting the content for my website. Back when I was starting out, I didn't have family members that could financially help me, and I had to reinvest whatever I had into my own practice to get it off the ground. I didn't see a paycheck for the first year, but you have to kind of pay your dues that way. And I'd say, as a practical matter, once you're in practice, one of the hardest things is managing people, right? Having the social acumen, the social intelligence to be able to manage people and make them feel invested and put them in roles in which they excel and exceed, knowing what your strengths and weaknesses are, surrounding yourself with people who have the strengths that you lack to be able to supplement your skill set and perform optimally for your clients. But I can go on and on forever, but I'm going to hand it over to Mariam for a different perspective.
Thank you, Tina.
Well, Tina said everything I was going to say, so the only other thing I'm going to add, she did it so eloquently, but some of the hardships that I have is not knowing that I am capable, right? And we have to overcome that fear, and I think that's ingrained in being Armenian. Yes, we're very courageous. Yes, we are very capable. We're obviously very, very hardworking, and look at this room. But I think we have a dormant fear, a subconscious fear, that I hold us back from a lot of these. And I can say that once we overcome that fear, and for each of us it's a different form, once we overcome that, we're very capable. So the hardship is overcoming that fear, then finding the discipline, because I also believe, you shouldn't open up a practice while you don't have the discipline. And I think a lot of firms, fresh out of law school, will establish themselves, but then they will flunk, and they will find themselves in trouble because they oversight clients even though I was a corporate attorney and I didn't know anything about PI world, what I did develop is the ability to run a practice, right? The finances, the marketing, client retention, being able to anticipate what's next. So I think my advice to anybody that's thinking about going lateral, you shouldn't do it right away. Yes, you have the skill set, yes, you have the degree, yes, you have the diploma, but do you have the training that it takes to have that practice? So that's one caveat. Another thing is, the reason finances are so important is you've got to attract a talented team. Your team is really what brings you success. It's not you, because you yourself can't do everything. So then you need a strong financial stability to be able to attract talent, and the team is really what brings you success. That's what I believe ultimately. So.
Thank you, Mary. You can keep the microphone because the next question is coming.
Okay.
I hear some younger people, even before law school, while they're still doing their high school or their bachelor's degree, that intend on going to law school, they say, I'm going to practice criminal defense, or I'm going to become a family law attorney. And my advice to them, hold your horses, finish law school, get a little bit, acquainted with the whole thing, and then decide. So I want to ask each of you, what made you choose the areas of your specialties or your practice? If you can briefly describe why you went into the area that you went into.
Undergrad was international business. I speak many languages. I thought it was a good marriage, but then quickly I realized that I have a wonderful husband who's going to support me through law school, and he did just that. So going to law school was a dream come true for me. And before going to law school, I was already at Paramount Pictures in the finance department. So as soon as I graduated law school, they took me back into their legal department. So I kind of landed there by sheer chance. But transactional is just not my thing because I'm a people's person, right? I like to talk to people, I like to help people, and transactional is just you, your computer, your office, your contract. So negotiating deals, it sounds exciting, but when you start doing it, it's a very solo practice. You don't have a lot of engagement. So after doing that for so many years, I realized that my true talent, which is giving people the confidence of, I've got you, don't worry, you're at your lowest, but I'm going to carry you through it, is really in PI, and that's why I found that. That's why I made that leap, and it works for me. So that's why I'm here.
Perfect. Tina?
That's really awesome, and everything you said resonates with me, and I can certainly relate. I didn't choose my specialty initially, my specialty chose me. I ended up falling into insurance defense, and honestly, it was the best thing that ever happened because doing the defense side first helps me anticipate the other side's position in my practice now, and prepared me for my practice now, so I'm really grateful to have had that opportunity. But I was in court one day pulling a criminal record for a friend, completely unrelated to my practice area. There was a lady that was sitting on the steps of the courtroom and crying, and she asked me if I was a lawyer, and I was 1 year out back then, and they put the fear of God in you, and I'm like, oh my God, solicitation, I can't talk to you right now, but here's my name, go look me up. And so she reached out, and as it turned out, her husband, Crispin, had fallen off a roof, and their attorney at the time was trying to force them, strong-arm them into an $80,000 settlement, when that would have even been enough to cover his medication for a year. And so I had only done defense work up till that point. My biggest client was Macy's and Bloomingdale's. I handled most of their Armenian cases. I would defend those claims just to make sure the interpreters were doing a good job. But I decided to take that case on and really worked it up. This was maybe, 18 years ago, and settled it for mid-7 figures. And that feeling that you get when you get to help a family and make that kind of impact is like no other, honestly. You get this feeling of exalted pride and gratitude, and you don't take for granted the fact that they are rock bottom and you got to be a part of their silver lining. And I knew that I wanted to do that forever. And I think shortly thereafter, I called my defense client and said, love you guys, but peace out. I come collect your files. I want to just do plaintiff's work moving forward. And I never looked back. So I think it's a couple of things. It's obviously the desire to help people, the desire to interact and make a difference, make a positive impact in the lives of others, think of the legacy that you're leaving behind. You want to set a good example for your kids, and so you want to feel proud and happy to get out of bed in the morning, right? And obviously you supplement your work with hobbies and things that feed your soul, but for me, my practice area really chose me. And but if you're on the fence and you're not sure, I would certainly recommend in law school availing yourself of opportunities for mentorship, for internship, for clerkships, to go and familiarize yourself with certain practice areas to get a real sense of whether or not you're cut out for it. I had a friend that was certain she wanted to do family law, and she started out and decided, God, she really can't stomach those nasty custody battles, and she was out really quickly. I would say start in law school exploring some of your interests to figure it out, because you don't want to be an attorney who's graduated 3 years out and has jumped around 6 different firms. That doesn't look good on your resume. Unfortunately, prospective employers look down on that. And so I would start exploring during law school to really narrow down your interests and area of practice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Armen. Your question's very good because it applies both ways to me. I knew I wanted to get into the estate planning world, and because I had my finance undergrad, I liked to deal with numbers and also with the real estate world. And I basically had zero interest to be any part of family law because, like Tina explained, I just didn't want to deal with that, all those emotions. And then after referring cases out to other firms, the clients were complaining that you sent me to this, someone was charging me too much, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, you know what? Well, I brought in a paralegal who does the Jerry Springer stuff, as I call it, all the drama. And then when it comes time to go to court, I'll appear and handle the matter. I still don't love it, but sometimes it ends up falling in your lap and finding you, and then the issues are very interrelated with estate planning. So death and divorce, the real happy stuff in the world, we're handling now in the firm, which is something that I would have never, ever thought about with dealing with death and divorce on a daily basis. I was thinking more happy, money-related planning. But yeah, I see that I've seen more death certificates than I should, than I was planning on. But this is a very important question, because in law school, you're like, yeah, I'm definitely going to do this. Maybe not. So open your horizons. One thing I knew for sure I'm not getting into is anything criminal related, and I did not. So if you know that, you know pretty. That's pretty concrete, I think. You're right.
So Gerard, my next question is more for people that are planning on making the move to start their own practice. Let's say yesterday they were planning on doing that. So more immediate planning need. Describe some of the factors or considerations that goes into that kind of decision, other than what you already described. Like, for example, renting the place. Where do you rent the place? Is it a good idea to sublease from a law firm or a group of attorneys or Fijian suite or executive suites? Finance. Let's say a person who's planning on opening up a practice doesn't necessarily have liquidity. Marketing. Those kinds of considerations, if you can give your perspective.
Right. Very good question, Armen. And these were some of the things that were really terrifying. Was, okay, I'm going to leave and I'm going to be in a room with nothing in there basically except my computer and that, the blinking screen. And how am I going to deal with the financial aspects in terms of the documentation, the software? What do I need? Which software am I going to go with? All this stuff, again, is money, but let's put aside the money thing. That you can each figure out on your own. Everybody's on their own with that one. For example, billing software. How are we going to deal with this? What software are we going to use? Because we all came from a firm that already had their things set. And so some of the things I adopted, some of the things that I didn't like, I looked for other things or looked to mentors. Mentors for me were the most important thing during this time. Mentors, not necessarily your mentors who are going to help you for filings of documents and stuff, but mentors not necessarily even in the legal world of finding office space or which area. Does it even matter that you have an office? That's something that for us when we started, you had to have an office, right? Basically. Now you don't even need an office. You can even rent conference rooms at these beautiful places. It makes you look like a billion-dollar company at some Fijian suite with no names anywhere. It's an option. We've always had a law firm, an actual law firm, and I've shared space most of the time. I was on my own, and I see the big benefit of sharing space because it's helpful to have other attorneys to bounce ideas off of, and also when you're not there, they can cover for you or at least accept some kind of documents that are being served on your clients or anything else. But having the office space wherever it is, whether you need it in a specific geographic location or not, is one big consideration. The software that you're going to be using, both the legal research software, which are for your substantial work, and also for your administrative software, billing and whatnot. There's tons of stuff out there. And we tried them all, and we did all the expensive stuff. We went with what was called Abacus back in the day. It was great, and then they changed it to an online. They wanted to charge us $10,000 and this and that and whatever. Like, you know, forget it. I'll just get QuickBooks. Okay, you got QuickBooks. It was great. I had it on my server. Now they want you to go online. They're not offering it. So it's constantly changing. So that's something that I know there's a lot of continuing legal education courses that talk about just about the software and what are tools that everybody can use. And again, coming out of law school, all of these things, you're thinking, I'm probably not going to be dealing with this, but you probably are at some point in your career. You're going to be faced with what are you going to be using. And another thing, like the drug dealers, they give you LexisNexis and Westlaw wide open in law school, and oh my gosh, and so it's like, yeah, it's just normal for me. Guess what? We pay thousands of dollars a month to have that kind of open software. So another thing that you wouldn't really think about, and we end up having to share software seats and whatever, not illegal, legally, under the same IP address, and but just things that you don't think about. And so, what am I getting at? Talk to people who've done it. Talk to people who are doing it, and get ideas from them. You don't necessarily have to do exactly what they did, but the tried and true method is always a good way to follow. There's no right or wrong answer in any of these. It's a choose your own adventure for all of us here. Nobody's right, nobody's wrong. It's just whatever works for all of us. But the most important thing is we're all available to answer questions. And no questions stupid, especially in a lot of these things where you don't really know. Should I lease? Should I sublease? Should I go in a Fijian suite? Well, we got to talk about what are your specific requirements. And sorry, we're trying to give general answers to very specific things, but. That's how it works, basically. Did I miss anything, or am I good? Okay.
Thank you,
Dina.
Dina, let's say I just got my bar license and I had a couple $1,000 to my name.
Yeah.
I don't want to go work for insurance defense or for anyone. I just want to be my own person, hang my own shingle, and maybe just start small. How do I do that?
Okay, so I'm going to take one step back, right? I'm a big proponent that you need to get experience, and it's smarter to learn on someone else's dime. So I would definitely recommend a year or two under your belt with a firm, preferably in the specialty area that you want to be in, and then breaking off. But everyone thinks, I want to go out on my own. Is that a cricket?
Yes.
Okay. But there needs to be sort of a discussion in your own mind and a moment of truth for you. If you're at a firm where you are thriving and you're doing well and you see an opportunity to excel and you see an opportunity for partnership and fits your lifestyle, then maybe going out on your own is not for you. Maybe you stay the corporate route. However, if you're in a position where you feel like you're going to hit a glass ceiling, and as much as some people don't agree, that tends to be the case more for my female colleagues in the room, although no one likes to talk about it. If you're in a position where there's no seat at the table for you, then you make the decision to set your own table, I think. Whether or not you go the feed-in suite route or the sublease route, and the location is dependent largely upon your area of practice. I have always been more of a substance over form girl. What do I mean by that? I started out in a feed-in suite, but not because it was snazzy. I did that because I was interested in the referrals that could potentially come from colleagues in other specialty areas. I wanted to feel like part of the community and, kind of immerse myself with other attorneys, have sounding boards. It was significantly more expensive per square foot, but it was worth it for me because it was more than just office space, right? But later on, when I went on my own, I didn't need to be in an A building. A B building was just fine. I would rather take the money and invest it in good human resources and, people, because that is the heart and soul of a firm, and that's what makes a difference. And I learned quickly, if I'm hitting big numbers and I'm getting results, and my reputation kind of, speaks for itself, then clients really don't care about what your office looks like. Now, if you're doing corporate law and you're competing with those multi-million-dollar law firms, then yeah, they do care. But in plaintiff's work, my experience has been, particularly in catastrophic injury, where oftentimes you're going to them, they're not coming to you. You don't have to get the nicest, most expensive office space at first, at least, right? So that's, function over form. Invest in things that matter, like the software, like perspective, advertising, like human resources that can help grow your firm. That's what I would focus my spend on, at least initially, okay? And then lastly, look, you fake it till you make it, right? You have to be your own best advocate. And you have to be, you talk about the elevator pitch, but you have to look the part, substance over form when it comes to your business expenses in your office space, but when it comes to yourself, look presentable, look sharp, learn to communicate well. They don't tell you the importance of communication in undergrad or in law school, but your ability to communicate well and resonate and move people and convince people and be persuasive is going to be the most important tool in your toolbox. And you have to be able to, whether it's a job interview or an interview with a prospective client, you have to be able to sell yourself. And so make sure that you get some real life experience to have the ability to eloquently converse with people and be your own best poster child and your own best advertising until you're able to invest in some advertising if your business requires it. I think I nutshelled it, but if I missed anything, sorry.
You did great.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I forgot the question.
A person just got the license and wants to start and has only a couple $1,000 to his or her name. So what are some of the doable ways of doing it?
Well, I'm not going to give advice on something that I haven't tried, but I'll talk to you about what I tried. My very first office out of Paramount was an executive suite, one office, tiny office. My rent was $1,700, and I had 30 files. I had one desk in that office, and on that one desk it was me and my paralegal was still with me, Ani, who's not here today, but she's still with me. That's where I started. As the files started increasing in the same executive's office, I got an office that was slightly bigger and could fit 2 tables. And in that office, we fit 3 people. And then a year into that, we saw a space building down the street in Encino, and we got the space that was massive for me. It was huge because I think it had 5 offices, and I was very afraid, but then we signed the lease 5 years and 5 options. And since that time, we've extended that space 2 or 3 times. I can't remember. It's a book. But what I'm trying to say is, you can't think too much into the future. You gotta think of, okay, I have 30 files I need to deliver. What are my needs? Those are my needs, and I did that. Another issue, software. I tried Abacus. I hated it. It's not user friendly. What do? I read a lot of books. And I found a system called Clio. It's software, cloud-based. easy, friendly. I called the sales rep, they hooked me up. Yes, it was expensive, but it did the job. I still have it. Banking, I didn't know how to set up a trust account. And I called the only bank that I knew that I was at, Chase, and they gave me the runaround for 2 weeks. The guy wouldn't call me. Chase, so many Armenians were there, they didn't call me. So then I found another bank who were networking with them, and they set me up. They came to my office, they said, you don't have to worry about it, we'll take care of it. But networking, right, you ask me the right questions and they'll help you. Marketing, I don't know, marketing, what is marketing? I've never gotten a client for marketing, to be honest. Every single client of mine has been through a referral source, so I'm grateful for that. But I think in this day and age, marketing is very important. Tina spoke about image. Image is very important. You have to have a clean, presentable image. And marketing these days is Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and whatever else. But it's very important because you can no longer give people a business card. That's old school. They'll say, what is your Instagram account? I know a couple of people did that to me last night. Finding good talent. You know, if you're looking for, I needed a paralegal who spoke Spanish, and I just asked my friends, and people knew people, and boom, I attracted an amazing paralegal who was with me for 5 years. So, I think this room is a good place to start if you're thinking going on your own. There's so many resources here that you guys can tap into. And why not, let's do it right, because the idea of somebody in this room is going to be competing with me is not true, because there is just too much business, and unfortunately that business is going elsewhere. Why not capitalize on that, help each other so that we can replicate our success story?
And to go to Gerard's point, find a good mentor and attach yourself to that mentor. And I think that's going to get you started in this journey. So my next question for the panel, describe some of your memorable or interesting cases, big wins, and cases that you may want to say a word or two, and what made it so interesting, or if it made any difference in your career. And after that, we can also talk about your community service, what type of community service involvement each of you have. Go ahead.
I'll start with community service. I don't think of community service as community service. It's part of my being. So giving back is what has to happen, right? If you give to the world will give it back to you. There's no other way. And that community service comes in so many different forms, like spending time with your client who needs some cheer during the holiday. That is community service. Or volunteering at the West Plaza Center. That is service. And being part of the parent-teacher organization at school is also community service. So you got to see what speaks to you and just leap in. A memorable case or mine, on Wednesday I finished my very first trial ever. And I know a lot of people doing that, but yes, I've been practicing for almost 18 years. But because I was a transactional attorney, I never really got to go to trial. This was my very first trial on my own. It was my in-house attorney, Alan Hallelujah. I don't know if he's here today, but my first trial, it was 4 years old, 4 years and 4 months. My very, very close friend had referred her mom to me, and the pressure was on, right? My first trial ever. So it was a very memorable trial. We got the hardest judge, Judge Cato, in the Van Nuys courtroom. Wow. And when I read the reviews, I almost fell off my chair. I'm like, oh no, my luck. But somehow we prevailed, we won big, we got everything we had. And what I mean by that is you don't know where your story is going to take you. You have no idea. So to be brave and to lean forward and have the world kind of absorb you is the magic of this practice, this profession. And I'm indebted for this organization for giving me that confidence.
Very cool. Very cool.
That's really cool. I'm proud of you. That's really, really cool. Okay, so as you can imagine, when you're dealing with brain injury, there's a lot of interesting fact patterns you get to learn, some extreme things, the stupidity, inherent stupidity of certain people who do certain things, and just insane kind of fact patterns and stuff. And so every single one of my cases is memorable and different in its own way, but I feel like you always remember your first trial, right? And so my first trial was for a plaintiff named Michael Noxon, who had fallen off a motorcycle. His helmet had failed, and he was on a test drive at work, so it was a comp and a civil crossover case. My defense attorney in the work comp matter was an Armenian gentleman by the name of Odjaghian. And it was so contentious during trial. The judge threatened both sides with sanctions multiple times if we didn't simmer, and it was just really intense. And after we finished, we stepped out of the courtroom, and I'll never forget, he kind of held his hand out and he shook my hand and he said, "Congratulations, counsel, you've done a great job, your client is really lucky to have you." And that blew my mind a little bit, but also set such a great example for me of how to conduct yourself professionally, and get in there and do a good job, but then also be a decent human being and be able to kind of relate and separate the two. And so I'll always remember that as a fond memories every time I see him in court. It's, he was just such a gentleman, and he set such a great example for me. I'm currently working on a case against Fox News where a 19-year-old kid fell from the 5th story of a building, and the scene was sterilized before the police were called. It was a really bizarre and eerie and just scary, crazy fact pattern, and he is semi-vegetative, he almost died, and we think his insulin pump failed, so there again is a civil component to the lawsuit and a workers' comp component. We had an 8-day trial on the workers' comp component because Fox denied it. They tried to say that our client was trying to commit suicide or was horseplaying, but we prevailed on that initial threshold issue, and both cases are still ongoing. I've got a really close relationship with the mom. It's a case that's near and dear to my heart, and so it's just one of those, I think, pivotal career-shaping cases for me, and so I was really grateful to have had the opportunity to work on it. Community service, like Mariam said, I couldn't agree with you more, comes in so many different forms, right? I was a first-generation immigrant kid. I worked full-time during law school. I didn't have any family members who were in the legal profession, and I always credit my success to some guardian angels in my path, whether it was law professors like Lori Levinson or, folks in this organization like some of the OGs, Armen over there, who kind of really set a great example for me and mentored me, Judge Sinanian over there. And so I never take that for granted, and I make it a point to pay it forward whenever I have the opportunity, whether it's, attending events like this, doing mock trial interviews for different law schools, just personally mentoring folks who reach out on social media however I can, speaking engagements, and of course, philanthropy. Philanthropy is a huge part of the equation. It really, not only it's the right thing to do, but it feeds your soul and it gives you purpose, and it just sets an amazing example for your kids, and it's part of your legacy. And so why not give back within the Armenian community? The Armenian community is really near and dear to my heart. I'm a half Armenian kid, but I grew up in a very high asset home. The organizations that I generally support tend to be within the brain injury community because, that's where my clients come from, and, that's kind of familiar, and those are some of the resources that are there for the families of my clients who are affected by a life-changing, terrible injury, but also within the Armenian community. My preference tends to be for children's charities because I have young children, and it breaks my heart to see some of the things that are happening back home now. The organizations of choice, and there are many wonderful organizations out there, are, ORAN, the Armenian Missionary Association of America. I recently was introduced to Co-op, which is doing amazing things as well in Artsakh and Armenia currently. And, I encourage all of you, I think people think that they can't make a difference unless they're really earning big or have been in practice a long time, and that's not true, every little bit matters. I think if you get into the practice of giving just a little bit, whatever's within your comfort zone, and exercising that muscle, it just becomes really gratifying, and then you can increase it as your success grows. But now I think I've gone way outside the scope of your question, so I'm going to hand it over to Gerard.
Okay. Thank you, Tina. I get approached often with requests to set up charitable organizations, and the ones that speak to my heart are always Armenian related, and so I do those on a pro bono basis for the most part, if they're really to help the community. One of them was for Armen M, the former human rights defender. He has a charitable organization that we set up, and they're doing great work. Another one that most of you would probably know about is the American Armenian Rose Float Association that I formed and got the 501c3. So every year it's magical to see a rose float go down in Kassabian, and having on the float a lot of our local Armenians who have some type of impact in our community. I mean, that's my war story, is that we do things that impact, the impact is greater than we expect, and I'm thankful to be a part of the amazing results. It's not me per se doing it. I was just in the formation phase, but proudly support all of them, and it is an amazing feeling to know that singularly you can be omnipresent and be part of history. I mean, for those who are planning on going on their own and thinking, how am I going to achieve this? It'll happen. It's just a matter of doing the work, and things will come to you. One of the panelists that should have been up here for the marketing part, which I want to single out real quick, is Judge Ashfanian right now is sitting on the bench, and we have Judge Sinanian who just retired, and he is in the marketing world now. He would have been a good person to going from having like illegal to market while you're up on the bench to now going 100 miles per hour with that. It's an interesting dynamic, right? Changing from just an overnight change. Interesting world. And I bring that up because it doesn't stop. He's at the top of his game, and he retired from the bench, but now he has to market. So it doesn't stop. You have to continue marketing. So anyway, I'll turn this over to you.
He's number one on my recommendation list to opposing counsel.
Absolutely.
But they give me one
Now
look and they
direct
say,
marketing for
are you related? Because you two look alike.
We both use turtle wax.
All right, I'm going to thank all three of our wonderful panelists. If there are any questions, you're welcome to ask right now. Artie? Go ahead.
Yes.
Oh, Asha, I'm sorry.
I want to ask about work-life balance, and assuming that you found it, that there's not whiskey in your coffee, do you have any advice about achieving it?
Sure. So work-life balance is an oxymoron. It doesn't exist. And if anyone tells you that it does, they're lying. There is no such thing. Something gives every day, and that's okay. I think you just have to, and this is really difficult for me because I'm a perfectionist. I'm very type A. I'm an overachiever because I'm driven by fear a little bit as a first-generation immigrant, and so it was not humanly possible to do what I want to do at the level I want to do it at, and still have my kids, and still have my family. So I think relinquishing control a little bit, which is so against our nature, and being okay making provision for a little bit of imperfection, and being compassionate with yourself when those imperfections occur is really, really important. And then getting a hobby, getting something that you love that feeds your soul, and not listening to the limiting beliefs in your own head about what you can and can't or should and shouldn't do, or the external limiting beliefs that someone else possesses that they're attempting to put on you. I think positive affirmations, meditation. For me, I call it forestication. I go, hiking in the trails behind my house every day with my children, making it a point to spend time with my children, availing myself of the joys of being in private practice, which are like flexibility of schedule and being able to be at every ball game my kid has, so that I have no regrets at the end of the day, and I feel like my soul is nurtured and I can perform optimally for my clients. I think breaking stereotypes and doing what works for you, and that's going to be different for everyone, Asha. You might enjoy something completely different. For me, I had 12 hours of hypnotherapy last week to be able to fly alone, and I took a trip to Paris for a couture week. I attended a bunch of shows. I came back. I'm jet lagged as hell right now, but it was just incredible. And, maybe 5 years ago I would have been embarrassed to tell you that, but now I'm really proud of it. So I think, doing what works for you.
I'm proud of you, too.
Thank you, Asha.
Why did you call me hypnotherapy? I do need that. But not the fear of flights.
The best.
Work-life balance, what is that? And I agree with everything you say, but to me, being a mom is really the number one priority in my life. So early on, I had a huge worry about pursuing my career and being a good mom. And I have the pleasure of working with, an amazing producer with whom I'm still friends with. Her name is Odjaghian. She's much older. And she said, Mariam, your kids are going to grow up watching you, and they're going to learn from you by not you telling them how life is, but how you showing them how life is. And I was like, Winship, I don't know, I never get to see my babies. I get home, they're already sleeping. I leave early in the morning, and they're all still sleeping. She's like, trust me. And I'm like, I'm not going to trust a producer who's never really had kids. I'm Armenian, I'm so different, this is not going to work. Well, my eldest is 16, my middle one's 14, my youngest son is 10, and I can, no bragging rights, but I think they have watched, and they have watched in awe, and for Christmas, I tell them, don't get me gifts, write me a note. And every year, as I read the notes they write me, it moves me. Because I think the work-life balance is that, being able to instill our children, and yes, we Armenians have higher pressure, instilling in our kids that they're capable. And I think me going out there and doing it, and living my dream, is really what I want to pass on to my girls and my son, of course. But work-life balance is having an amazing partner who supports you, having a loving family. My mom and dad called me last night saying they cleared the calendar for Saturday, today, so I can do my panel, and they can shuffle my kids from tennis to basketball to soccer, and I have to be at a volleyball game at 4 o'clock. So that is work-life balance, because you need a village, and we Armenians are great at having a village. Yeah. This group is a village, and Judge Sinan, on the night of my trial victory, texted me saying he's proud of me. That is the village, and I think that's where the balance comes from, knowing that you're loved, knowing that you're protected, and knowing that you are capable. We are very capable. So that's my answer.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Other questions over there, please?
Why is it so important for attorneys, especially new attorneys, to join the Armenian Bar Association?
That's a flood question.
Because there's no other organization like it that understands where you're coming from, understands your situation, understands the mentality and what you need to be able to succeed, right? It's rooted in our heritage. It's made up of incredible people, all of whom want to see you succeed. And I can tell you my personal story. I walked into the first Armenian Bar Association event after being sworn in. It was at Sulmeyer Kupitz back then. Frank Zerunian was a partner. And I looked like Legally Brunette in my little skirt suit, and I walked into this room, and it was a sea of 50-plus-year-old men in black suits, and I was mortified. And I literally walked in and turned around and was about to walk out, and Armen over here stopped me along with Datev Shenyan, and I'm trying to remember who else, like guardian angels. They said, it's fine, you're fine. I must have been one of 4 women in the room, no exaggeration, and I stuck out like the sore thumb. And they took me around the room and introduced me to people, and everyone was warm and kind and welcoming. One of the twins, I think, Azadian, I forget his name now, but he was such a gentleman. Art was his first. Abazian, that's right. Yeah. Art Abazian. And, they introduced me to a bunch of people, one of whom was Grace Harukian, who gave me my first interview at QTAC Rock. And I literally had my first opportunity present itself in a room that I almost walked out of. And I feel like, they spoke my language, everyone was warm and welcoming, and I can't imagine the stars aligning any better. So I am a real-life example of what's amazing about this organization. And if you're a law student or a new lawyer and you haven't joined, there's really no excuse for it. I think there's no membership dues for new folks. I think any of us on this panel would be happy to sponsor you if there is and you're not able to make it. But it is really an incredible group of folks and an incredible sense of belonging that is just irreplaceable. And I've got, memberships at CALA and CAW and a bunch of other organizations, and there's just nothing like the Armenian Bar. So.
Thank you, Dina. Any other perspectives, Gerard?
I'll add one thing that it's on purpose that we made the membership free for students to encourage everybody. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here. Everybody's here, obviously, but right. But to tell others. But beyond becoming a member, showing up to events is also, the important step. But showing up and then standing in the corner talking with your own schoolmates, that's not why we have an Armenian Bar Association. It's to come here, meet people, look them in the eye. Possibly an internship comes out of it, possibly a referral to something comes out of it. So it's what you do with it. There's a level of spoon feeding that is going to stop, and we need to grow up and do this. And this is geared more for the students. I've seen it a lot where they congregate with the people that they're comfortable with. You have to break out of that shell and go meet people. And martove, as they say in Armenian, it's the human interaction and our relationships that are going to help you excel and to move forward in your professional careers. That's the whole reason for these bar associations. And not just this one. Go to become members. Some of our board members were board members within the Mexican American Bar Association. They're not Mexican, but guess what? They took them in because they liked them, and they met a lot of people. We had a nice interaction with them, with the mob, and rest his soul, the DUI warrior who came and gave a speech. Yeah, so anyway, there's so many opportunities that you don't really think about. It's just a matter of walking up and saying, hi, my name is. I tried doing that last night to meet a lot of people, just to say hi, break the ice. Some people from out of town, some people from here. It's nice, you get to meet people, and you never know what's going to come out of it. That's the most important lesson about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Armen?
Thanks to all you guys for such wonderful remarks. I'm sure you guys are an inspiration for me and many people in this room. I recently bit the bullet and started my own office. I wanted to see if you had any examples that you could give of either something that going off on your own allowed you to do better for your clients or more efficiently, or some unexpected things that you didn't know were going to turn up that were challenges that you had to overcome.
Yeah.
I'll jump in really fast. I know we're kind of on time. One of the things I'm able to do when I'm on my own is if I believe in my client's injury, no amount of money is there. If I need to hire the best possible expert, I make that decision, I stick to it, and I do it. That's my decision. And I always, when we're filtering cases, if I believe the injury, then we go with that. It's my decision. I love that flexibility. A lot of times, other practices don't do that, and I find out in my own practice, I love doing that. So that's a good example. Sheila?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the autonomy to do what you want, take the cases you want, spend the amount you want, hire who you want. It's also a blessing and it's also a curse, right? And so for me, I love to control the situation, and so for me, it's been a blessing to be able to be in charge of making some of those big decisions rather than as an associate having them made for you. And that can be really frustrating sometimes because you might actually believe in a case and you might actually want to, but you're limited in your ability to exert your influence and your opinion. So I think just enjoy the autonomy, but be prepared that things will turn up, whether it's, having to go get a particular business license or, having to open up the trust account in a certain way or, having to get a certain limit of malpractice insurance or things that you hadn't anticipated. And don't be alarmed. At first I would be really reactive because I was afraid, I didn't want to do anything wrong. And now I realize the urgency was in my own head. It's not urgent. Take your time, breathe into it, and the solution will come. Be resourceful, but don't be fearful and reactive, and the solution will come. In fact, condition yourself to know that contingencies will come up, you anticipate them, and it's okay. You have the reservoir of resources within yourself to combat any such issue that arises.
Yeah. I'll give you 2 examples of what happened in the firm I was working in. I was in downtown in an a very established firm that did estate plan. Everything I do, they did. It was, clients would come in, it was very business-like, and they would leave, and I would realize, I came from the plastic surgery world. When they would come in, we would pamper them and stuff. So now, in my office, when clients come in, we immediately do the Armenian hospitality, coffee, water, pastries, whatever. Guess what? They love that because they don't get that elsewhere. And it relaxes the client as well, and they feel more as a friend than they're on a business transaction, which also is important for me. That's number 1. Number 2, software-wise, the firm I was working with, they did things a different way, and I wasn't happy with it, and I even told them there's a risk that they were using forms, constantly using the same form for different matters. I said, I don't like this. There are software that build for each client what we need to do. So as soon as I got off, I immediately was part of that software. I mean, that's obvious. That's an obvious thing, but the other point I bring up, it's not something you read in a textbook about how to treat your client who's coming in. This is your office now. It's your image. It's the way people remember how they felt, right? There are a lot of the stuff they remember how you made them feel. You made them feel welcome and they were happy. That's the important thing that I do in my office, and it's been working very well. And now when they come in, they're expecting that. They come in, they're expecting the little cookie next to the espresso, for example. Why not? It costs nothing, but it catapults you higher up than most of the other ones who are practicing in the same area, for example. Little things, right? Yeah, goes a long way, believe it or not.
Thank you, Gerard.
Yeah.
Tashjian, you had a question?
Yes. I want to commend all 3 of you for being our panel speakers. And I'm going to ask a question on behalf of law students because I know some of them are thinking about it, but not brave enough to ask a question. I think from financial standpoint and also what Tina touched on, do what you want to do, but maybe start off working for a law firm. What about your opinion about a kitchen sink law firm where brand new lawyers open up a firm? They can't really have enough financial stability to go into PI, workers' comp, or tax, so they take on criminal defense, PI, family law, immigration, so forth, so on, just thinking, let's just see what works for us. What is your opinion about should they do that or not, and the pros and cons of it?
Judge, I'm going to tell you my opinion respectfully. I'm against it. I'm against it for obvious reasons. The potential for malpractice liability. We're licensed professionals. You don't want to leave someone worse off than you found them, and just the ethical obligation to your client to represent them and handle their matter competently should exceed, the other interests. Now, there is one exception or caveat to that, and it's called a billboard lawyer. And I've got some friends who are billboard lawyers, and so I'll kind of temper my opinion about what it is that they do, but they're not attorneys. They're businessmen or businesswomen, and the business model is they've never seen the inside of a courtroom, but they're going to field a ton of shit, pardon my French, and then refer it out to other people. If that's what you want to do, if you went to law school for so many years to become a billboard image and you're not passionate or interested in advocating or trying cases, then by all means, you can certainly do that business model, but be aware that if you're doing that, you're competing with guys that have, a business model whereby they have investors and private equity that's coming in and throwing $500,000, $2 million a month into advertising to field those leads, and so you will quickly be suffocated by the competition. So you can see why that's not really a viable or a good use of your resources, in my opinion. I don't think the kitchen sink approach is the right approach. I think that, you will be relying mainly on incompetent prospective clients who don't possess, the requisite intelligence maybe or sophistication to go online and do a little bit of research and realize, you're just a face and a talking head and there are no results. And if that's the kind of clientele you're going after and you're relying on, good luck and not screwing up, then by all means. But there really, really is a better way. I feel like getting the experience in areas of practice that interest you, perhaps narrowing it down to 2, 3 tops. But, in the legal community, there are firms, unfortunately, that are laughing stock because we laugh amongst ourselves, oh, jack of all trades, like it's such a joke. Clients see that too. Those are the firms that are getting subbed out the most, and your investment is not secure if you spend your money building that kind of business model. I would advise against it.
This is a great question, and I want to break it down into a little bit more basic terms on what the judge was asking. When you go out on your own and you're taking contingency cases, you're not going to see money for a long time. That's why she's saying you're doing the kitchen sink, meaning you're going to take some that pay up front, some that pay a little bit up front, in the middle, and at the end, and some where you have to wait all the way till the end. These are things we're not taught in law school, unfortunately. I don't know if now they are. The business of law isn't really something that is taught, and maybe they have courses. I think they do. Professor Armenian shaking her head. Yes, I remember they had more of it than they did during my time in school, which is great, but still, when you graduate, you're not like a medical doctor where you can immediately do things. You still have a huge learning curve, and that's one of them. Is this financial aspect of it is the big question mark. And so again, you need mentors who can guide you in that, and also maybe if you, instead of doing that kitchen sink, you start working part-time with a firm, and then you take things on the side for if you can to supplement, and then you hit the ground running. Just going in and out.
Just a quick example. So Gerard's absolutely right, and I don't want to be insensitive to the financial component of starting out on your own. And in fact, when I started out on my own, I had Macy's and Bloomingdale's, and so I had that hourly business, right? And then I supplemented that with more hourly business, but I targeted a field that I felt I was confident in, and I'll give you an example. My husband was a dentist. We had acquired a couple of dental practices for him. I had negotiated the leases. I had done the purchase and sale agreement. I had had hours of mentorship with with attorneys who specialize in that field, who kind of helped walk me through it. I retained them to teach me. And then I did a little bit of dental law for a year. I hated it, but I did it to pay the bills. But I was confident and capable and did it myself and learned on my own dime, as opposed to penalizing my clients for incompetence. So that's just